Good morning, Mr. Barber students. It is Friday the 15th. This will be the last video for this week. Econ kids, don't forget to be on the lookout today for your week 36 materials. Alright, let's get into it. So, I've got three things for you guys on the current news. The first is that Wuhan, China, the original hotspot of the coronavirus outbreak. Now, most likely, although we still don't know for 100% sure, but most likely the originating location of the virus, definitely the place of the very first patient zero outbreak, has seen a new outbreak occur once restrictions were lifted. So we're a couple months in, they had finally gotten under control, so they went ahead and opened up and then had almost immediately another outbreak occur. Now obviously it's much smaller, and China immediately responded by reinstating most of the lockdown procedures. And China's now attempting a new thing where they're going to try and test all 11 million residents in 10 days. There is a lot of skepticism worldwide that this is going to be possible, or if this is just the typical authoritarian, bragging and misdirection that you get with these kinds of governments and leaders. So I'll have to keep an eye on that to see how well that works and what the results are. Alright, so here's a combined world history, because, it's about Sweden, and a coronavirus story for the sophomores. So a lot of the lockdown protests in the U.S. are shouting, "Be like Sweden," but the Swedish people are pointing out that this is them completely misunderstanding why Sweden did what it did. So here's the basic rundown, because I don't think I've talked about this yet. Sweden is one of the few countries that did not have a mass quarantine lockdown, but instead had limited, targeted lockdowns, and essentially pursued what's called a herd immunity strategy, where they allowed people, they did not try and prevent people from getting the virus, but rather allowed people to get it in the hope that enough people would eventually get it and become immune, and the virus would therefore have a minimal impact in the country. Now, the current protesters and some conservatives in America and the Republican Party are arguing, well, why don't we do that? We should just do what they're doing. But the Swedish people are pointing out that this completely, and there's a conspiracy theorist, completely misunderstands the fact that Sweden's history is why it's possible for them to do this. Sweden has one of the most robust socialist systems. Now, they are not socialists like, Chinese communists. They are socialists in the European social democratic form, meaning that in that post-World War II era, Sweden, it's part of the rebuilding, put a massive effort into creating a large and very effective government-run health system, meaning that they could pursue the strategy because everybody had access to high-quality health care, which is obviously very much untrue in the United States, where most Americans do not have access to high-quality care, or if they do, it's incredibly expensive and bankrupts them. So it's one of those things where the Swedish people have to point out that the historical design of their government is why they're able to do it, and because the U.S. took a different path, we are not. Alright, here's a mixed one for the econ kids. So, following business, retail sales fall a record 16.4% in April, which was far worse than they had predicted. Basically, this is my favorite part, the only companies that did well were grocers. So basically, only places that sold food did well, not including restaurants. Restaurants were badly hit because, of course, the amount of sales, and here's your graph for you, the recession, and then crater. So we get to see this trend where people, because they don't want to leave their house somewhere they have to, were holing up, not ordering a lot from restaurants. So we see it by category. The non-store retailers took non-store retailers had an increase. That's the online sellers. Everybody else took a hit. Obviously, nobody's buying fancy shoes during this crisis. Alright. Last thing, guys, is a 2-book set. There's only 2 out so far. I haven't actually finished this one. I'm only about halfway through it. so I don't know if there's going to be a new trilogy. This is a book series from one of my favorite authors, Brandon Sanderson, and there's 2 in it so far. Like I said, I don't know if the second one is the last one. I still have about 200 pages left in it or something like that. But these are really cool books. It's got a female lead that's a really likable character, and it's definitely a book written for people my generation's age. It's definitely for the older millennials like me, because this book is kind of this combination of, in a lot of ways, I can feel the inspiration from a lot of movies from my childhood, like Fly the Navigator and The Last Starfighters. Definitely some influences there for kids like me from the 80s. For you guys, these would be really good quick reads. They're fun adventure stories. Skyward's got a real nice twist midway and a really good one at the end. Skyward, and then Starsight, the sequel. I've gotten through one good twist in the middle. We'll have to see where it lands at the ending. Alright guys, that's it for me this week. I will see you next week, and next week will be, in fact, the last set of these weekly videos, because after that it's finals week, meaning your last chance to turn anything in to get those grades up. Alright guys, goodbye.